Hi, I'm Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot. Today I'm going to be covering my latest interview with Captain Mark Richards of the Secret Space Program. And I interviewed him in the beginning of September. However, I've had multiple issues with both computers and the various renditions I've tried to do of this little talk. And now I'm trying this all over again. So here we go, and hopefully this will work. Hi, I'm Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot. Today I'm going to be giving my update from Captain Mark Richards of the Secret Space Program. I visited him in September, early September, at Solano Prison in Northern California, along with his wife, Joanne Richards, who always facilitates and helps with the interview. So I want to say in advance, thank you to Joanne for her help. So what happens is I am only allowed a pencil, small pencil to take notes with. So this is called Total Recall 11. This is my 11th interview with Captain Mark Richards. So what happens is that I go into the prison and we have around 3 hours, sometimes longer. I think this time it was around 3 hours, and I am able to ask him as many questions as I can even think of, although I am not allowed to take any notes into the prison. So if I didn't remember to ask a question that you requested, I do apologize. I have sent questions to him in advance at times, and he has got a huge list of questions from us. But we only have, as I say, a limited time, so it depends on what the most important topics are of the time, and this being around September of 2019, I was covering certain topics, as you will see, and then I will highlight them as we go on the screen here. So in the beginning, I want to say this sort of preamble, which this interview takes place in Solano Prison in Northern California. And for over 35 years, Captain Mark Richards has been and still is a prisoner of war in the war between on and off planet races that have dominated Earth for centuries. He is an honorable officer of the Navy who, because of his rebellion against the Draco and Reptoids, which is called the Luciferian Alliance, is considered a threat to their operations. He was framed for a murder he is accused of having masterminded while he was on a mission off-planet in service to humanity. He was a captain of a Starship Enterprise-type vessel from a very early age, in fact, probably early 20s and even earlier than that, until he was arrested in, I believe it was 1982, and framed for murder as a mastermind. Again, he is framed for a murder he is accused of having masterminded while he was on a mission off-planet in service to humanity. And to my knowledge, I am the only journalist who has interviewed him in prison, in person, in all of the time that he has been in prison. Mark's protection. So first of all, we talked about Mark's protection, the fact that he is very protected in prison, in part because there are certain individuals who are protecting him, as well as his own abilities, and the Raptors and his telepathic communication with the Raptors. So we also talked a lot about Trump in this various discussions, and so I'm going to be touching on that as we go forward. He wanted to say that he does admire how Trump has handled the attacks from various angles and been able to stick with his guns. So the first real topic that we discussed is the Randy Kramer situation regarding revisiting the alien false flag scenario. And I told Mark briefly about that idea. And Randy Kramer is, again, a super soldier, a U.S. Marine, and he was also speaking at the Yelm conference with me and other speakers, and hopefully that footage will be available in the near future. We were there, I believe it was sometime during right before actually September 1st. So anyway, I basically we discussed at the conference this idea that Randy Cramer has been asked by the people he reports to, the Marines, and he does report to a Marine commander apparently, and he was talking about the military's frustration with our current standstill on planet Earth with regard to disclosure, and the fact that they have a very high state of technology in the secret space program that they have been unable to release into the public domain, in part because disclosure has not happened here on Earth, and that is making everything much more difficult. So what we have is a rogue civilization which involves the U.S. military and the secret space program, the Illuminati, and various other factions, including various ET races. And therefore, they are operating on basically what can even be considered to be thousands of years in advance of what we are currently dealing with here on planet Earth, on the surface Earth, as it's called. So this is a big deal, and Randy Cramer military are now coming up with a solution that has to do with revisiting this idea of a false flag alien invasion and or Project Bluebeam, what it's been known by in the past, or a fake alien invasion. It's important to note that while they would be handling and creating a sort of fake alien invasion, the real alien invasion is going on simultaneously, and that is the war with on and off planet races that the military and super soldiers and others are very involved with, and most of it takes place under the cover of things like earth changes, hurricanes, various weather, manipulated weather events, as well as, of course, war in the Middle East and various other places, skirmishes that happen around the globe. All of these things are a cover for a human alien war that's been conducted now for many, many years here on Earth, and being covered up, of course, and kept from the mainstream world out there. So the idea here is that the hidden wars are also hidden by fires in California that happened in the last 2 years. We had fires in Northern and Southern California simultaneously in the month, I think it was of October last year, and that was in 2018 and also in 2017. We're coming upon the fire season again this year. We'll see what happens. Certainly Paradise, California was a site where the aliens were being battled by our military, and I have reported that on other total recalls that I put out there with my interviews with Mark Richards. Back in Yelm, when Randy Cramer sort of brought forward this idea that the military was reconsidering after all these years, and he actually said it's going to be within the next 6 months to 3 years that they're going to take action on this plan. And he also suggested that there would be collateral damage in the form of possibly as many as 1 million humans dying, and presumably those humans would be in the United States, although it wasn't completely clear. And there are extenuating circumstances also having to do with what kind of alien race would become the enemy. So the idea is to be focused on this Ronald Reagan idea that if we have a common enemy to fight on planet Earth and we are victorious, number one, this will unite humanity, and it will also alleviate to some degree the blowback from the military secrecy that's been going on all these years, which is 70 plus years of secrecy that will be revealed as this alien human sort of coexistence comes to the fore here on Earth. And this fake alien invasion would quickly turn into the real alien invasion, but there would initially be many battles where our military would be victorious because the actual aliens that they plan to create would be fake, and therefore the battles would be certain, the outcome would be certain. So this is the kind of thing that we're talking about. I challenged Randy Kramer in public during his talk, and that created something of a big kind of to do, because Randy was not happy with the challenge, and actually we parted as friends, so it was all in really a positive light. But nonetheless, I did ask him what kind of alien they were going to choose for this alien invasion, and he didn't answer the question. I asked him that several times. And also, I did talk about this dichotomy and why they would have to go to these lengths to bring disclosure. And of course, the obvious one is that they don't want lynch mobs to come forward when things like free energy, etc., are the basically the result of disclosure, and that this kind of disclosure would create a great deal of chaos, after which they would, according to Randy Kramer, they would trot out the free energy and all of the new toys, etc., that they've been using, and obviously commercial off-planet travel, and the fact that they go interstellar. They use neutron energy from neutron stars. We go interdimensional, and there is time travel and bases on the moon and Mars and colonies on some of the moons of Saturn. All of these things are things to consider. Okay, so the whole point of this is that I brought all of this up with Mark Richards and wanted to get his take on all of it. There is these weird drop frames that's happening with me, and we don't know why in this recording. So I want to apologize for that, and you will see it periodically. So the whole purpose of this discussion about Randy Kramer and the false flag alien invasion here is that I brought this subject up with Captain Mark Richards and wanted to hear his take on it. So we did discuss it, and he was actually strangely positive about the idea, thinking this idea was actually a good one. He agrees that obviously the negative aliens that we are battling at this time are not going to stand by and do nothing, while others are, fighting so-called fake aliens. Now, it's also important to realize that in this scenario, that they could trot an idea forward through Randy Kramer to this very alternative group in Yelm, which is a very small conference. And then it would disseminate out from there. The idea being, he said, to keep humans, a certain amount of humans, very small, that would trickle down into the alternative community. And so that those people during the battles with aliens that are actually real battles would be putting out the idea that they're fake battles, so that there would be some cooler heads out there putting the doubt. This is, again, an Illuminati tactic. They want to put forth the idea that on the one hand we are battling aliens, but on the other hand they're fake aliens, when in reality they're real aliens. So they always want to play both sides against each other, and they always want humans in a state of confusion, because that paralyzes them and makes them less of a threat. So that's what's happening here. And I do want to say that these interviews are now being interfered with in a very strange way. I have now disconnected my Yeti microphone because of the drop frames issue that's happening. But it's not really a drop frame, because I can see that it's happening here again, and I don't have a Yeti microphone connected. So what's happening is that whatever ET races, I'm not even connected to the internet right now, are interfering with my brand new computer and my sort of trying to record this interview here, this interview recall. So please bear with me when you see the jumps in the frames. That is some kind of interference that is happening. It may be this, the military is shooting some kind of pulse beam weapon at this thing. I have had that in other interviews in the past. Or on the other hand, it could be just, some gray negative ETs or whatever. So we would like to ask them to leave and let me do my work. And so that's what's happening here. Okay, so as I was saying, Mark Richards thinks that the fake alien invasion to push disclosure, being a real alien invasion at the same time, is a good idea. And he does understand that we are really talking about a military that is very frustrated. That's actually a good sign, I would say, for disclosure, because what we have now is, again, two civilizations living and working side by side, one underground predominantly and also going off planet, the other one obviously on surface Earth where nothing changes for the most part, in my opinion. And so this is what we're talking about. And it is a very strange conundrum to be faced with this idea that a super soldier comes forward at a conference on the bidding of his Marine Corps, let's say superiors, whatever you want to call them, and they have been telling him to trot out this idea. Now, someone else might say, well, the very fact they're talking about doing something before they do it means they're not going to do it. So it doesn't really matter. Mark's point here with regard to all of this is that he says the military is dealing with real multiple invasions by not so friendly alien races. And the battles are getting harder and harder to hide from public scrutiny. And this is why they are interested in pushing disclosure at this time. He also stressed that various races don't want to be confined to desert-like environments on Earth and want access to our coasts and more watery areas. And I suggested that because of what we call Ready Player One, Ender's Game, and also the Halo series, there is a sort of push to have young people battle alien insectoids or bugs, and in some cases beetle-like beings, out there and in games and so on, and also in movies and in books. And this seems to be preparing them for an alien invasion that involves insectoids. So I suggested that the gray aliens there's too many races of them, that wouldn't be a clear-cut enough enemy, because, as I say, there are good gray aliens and other versions, blue gray aliens and other colors of aliens that are like grays, and different sizes as well. So this would be a huge mishmash. But the aliens that have been depicted in these books and movies to kids may be the one, the alien of choice if you're going to have a fake alien battle in which our military is going to come out victorious. So I did run that by Mark Richards, and he thought that was very possible. So I want to stress that this fake alien invasion and everything I'm talking about is available on my website on a transcript of this talk here, and basically the notes that I wrote. And those notes are taken right after I leave the site, as well as during the time when I am able to scribble notes to myself with a pencil. But I also do a recording immediately after walking out of the prison. So I'm getting a lot of good stuff out there through this process, but it is very laborious, as you might imagine. And it is aggravated, of course, by these weird interferences that we're having now with video and audio. And I'm testing my CPU, and there's no reason why we would be having drop frames or these little jump cuts that seem to be happening constantly. So just bear with me, please. It's very important that I get this information out there. Okay. So the collateral damage that Randy Cramer talked about is basically, the bloodshed that would reveal the real presence of the real aliens. Needless to say, this is going to come to the fore, and that at some point the rubber will reach the road and people will understand that there are alien races and that our military has been dealing with them. It's really, how are you going to tell the public, and whether or not they're going to be raked over the coals for the years of secrecy. So that's what we're talking about. And it is interesting to me that, in a sense, I would say that Randy Cramer coming before an audience in Yelm is kind of a plea for help by the military. They need all the help they can get. They don't know how to start telling the truth, and they basically want to lie in order to start telling the truth, which kind of tells you the sort of road they've been going down all these years. Now, who are you going to call when you go to war with ET? There are a number of former officers that they could call upon to assist with this war. Even now, fighting aliens, there are men who have been trained to fight the aliens, men who have been throughout their career doing so and then had their minds wiped. Young soldiers where this is happening to them, they're being sent to places like Saturn and Mars and the moon, of course, and outside our solar system. And we're going to get into more of that here as the further I go, with information from Mark Richards about all of that. But the bottom line is that people like Mark Richards, and Mark Richards in particular, would be extremely valuable in the battle against aliens, especially as a commanding officer. So this is the kind of thing where there are some rays of hope, I believe, in and among these ideas of fake or real alien invasions. And it's just a matter of how to break it to the humans out there. Obviously, we're doing our best to do so here at Camelot. And I do appreciate those who support this work. So, screenplays. Mark has been teaching a screenwriting class to inmates for the past 2 years, and they have an excellent series idea. He has been trying to send me some scripts, but they never arrived. So we're going to try a few different tactics to get them out to me. Obviously, with my background in Hollywood, I am very interested in going back into Hollywood and getting movies and television series made from the stories that I've been told over the years. And now I've interviewed really over 1,000 people, and that includes, of course, military whistleblowers, as we call them, as well as whistleblowers from other parts of, the playing field. And this is really critical information. So getting it all out as fiction, parading as fiction is a good step in the right direction, and certainly would cause less bloodshed than a fake alien invasion. Hurricane Dorian, it stayed for several days over the island in the Bahamas, and hurricanes just don't do that. It was targeted and engineered, and Mark has not revealed the real purpose behind what they did with Hurricane Dorian, but it was created and had a lot to do with, I believe, removing people because of the intense amount of activity going on at the undersea bases in that vicinity. And so they wanted to get people off that island. And I believe that many of those people will never be able to return. So that's a very important point. And again, we've got populations moving, similar to Paradise, California, and the fires. This is happening probably all over the world, certainly in Syria and other war zones, major war zones, also in Africa, movement of populations, abandoning certain areas, allowing for the powers that be and the aliens that are behind them to commandeer those areas. Now, the ET good guys. Mark says we would not even be here if it were not for the alien good guys regarding the secret space program. He talked about how it was made up, how fragmented it is, how it is divided into as many as 18 different divisions. They are not all united. One faction recently bumped into another faction's ship, for example, and that faction retreated from the scene and couldn't get over the mishap for a very long time. Petty differences predominate. It's a lot like NATO. Regarding this secret space program and who's running it, the top level and dark magicians are basically ET and dark magicians running the secret space program. Those we call the Illuminati are in control. The United Nations had an office for alien affairs in Geneva for many years, and he says they're waiting for an alien to walk in. And I don't know whether that was like a joke or what. I guess he's kind of, it's kind of like a statement of irony. I have to say that in the past, Mark has talked about the UN and the meetings in Peru and also in Exeter, for example, in the UK, where we have aliens meeting with humans in a very secret location. This does happen from time to time. Dan Burish also talked about this. So these meetings are not that unusual, and the UN is involved. Mark talked about a television show on CW in which it has a red-headed version of me who investigates stories. He said it's worth watching. They are disclosing good information on that show. And I haven't found that show yet, but if you find it or know what show it is, please let me know, and I will continue to search for it, obviously. Africa and the races from Aldebaran. Kramer also talked about the races from Aldebaran, and he said they're getting harder and harder to control. This is a race that is talked about in a television series called The Event that I've talked about in the past. And Mark has expanded on the race from Aldebaran. These are the beings that helped the Nazis that William Tompkins also referred to. So this group apparently is changing their tactics, expanding their influence in places like Africa. According to Gordon Duff of Veterans Today, large parts of Africa have been given to the races from Aldebaran, and they destroyed 2 of their home planets, which was actually revealed in the event, and they have now come here. There is some question as to whether their presence on Earth is a positive one for us, and their physicality is different. It is possibly more reptilian, and they may need a more methane-like radiation-filled environment to exist, and all of this is not completely clear, but Mark does talk about the reptoids in Africa, and he did talk about how the race from Aldebaran would be expanding a lot like what happened during the push west in America during the, 1800s, where the settlers and the settlements started to expand and get larger and larger. So it sounds like something of that nature is going on in Africa. And there are, settlements that are sort of spread out further also on the way to the main base. And they start out with acquiring 1 or 2 items, such as chocolate or certain minerals, but apparently they're expanding their reach, and this is becoming a problem in Africa. So stay tuned for that. To crop up in the mainstream news is what I mean, and to look for those indicators that tell you you're getting a lie, but it's cloaked in some truth, which would be that there is skirmishes happening in Africa and in increased ways and methods. Now, regarding the attacks on Mark Richards in the alternative media, the attacks are aimed at Mark's effort to get a commuted sentence, Mark says, and could affect the ruling as to whether he gets paroled. He has been quite concerned about the attacks on him and his wife Joanne, needless to say, as well as on me and the rest of his family, and that is something that he is working with his lawyers to deal with. Regarding the attacks, I did communicate that I think that they provide a platform that serves the dark, and that people who want to remain in the dark and cannot handle disclosure, in essence, there is definitely a gay mafia, pedophile angle to the attackers, and they are, I think, working with a group that also has some background in this area. And I am also convinced that they are being run by British intel, although this has been denied, and there could be a German DVD side to all of what's happening, which is also aiming at silencing me, Mark, and Joanne. Lately, this group has been very preoccupied with Mark's father and his mother, even though they're both deceased, and spreading false information about his parents. Mark has contacts in British intelligence who have denied that they are involved, but this still appears to be very possible, in my view, and Mark tends to agree. Mark and his team of lawyers have found a substantial amount of dirt on the attackers, and this will be released in a video in the future by an unknown party. I will not be involved in that. And the attackers have been warned, if their attacks continue that this information about them will come out. They have indicated that they're not going to stop their attacks, apparently. Regarding Epstein and pedophilia, Mark says he has been operational. Epstein has been operational since college. Most of what Epstein did happened in the 1980s. He's definitely a double agent and or triple agent. He was involved in trafficking young women, boys, and children. This has been highly sanitized and limited to 14-year-old girls. Mark agrees that both sides had a reason to want to eliminate him once he started talking, and they both had things they want to hide. Once he was willing to talk, they probably did take him out or attempt to. Mark agrees with me that the New Mexico ranch house was likely used to ship humans, girls, boys, and children, to the Dulce base underground in New Mexico, and that Epstein was involved in both sex and commerce, according to Mark. There's never just the sex side of it. He said commerce is actually viewed as more important, and this is in the view of the perpetrators. So moving minerals would be part of the job. That includes the Uranium One story. Most operations are simply not one-sided. Mark thinks that not much more is going to come out about Epstein. It's something of a limited hangout. He has been trying to get to the bottom of whether Epstein is still alive, and it is very possible that he is. And that is basically where we left it. Mark was still pursuing his contacts to find out whether or not Epstein was taken out and by which side. So I will see whatever he says about that in the future, hopefully. Aliens are pushing the limits of their treaties. They are rebelling against being confined to desert areas, as I've said before. They are encroaching into populated areas, making secrecy very difficult. And this includes the aliens that invaded through the portal in Northern California. I did ask him again what kind of aliens were invading through that portal in Paradise specifically, and he said they were a combination of spider and octopus. They are hunters. They come from a planet that is about Jupiter size, and their moon is about the size of Earth. Regarding the fires in the Amazon, that is a reptoid incursion. He said those are reptoid ships creating the fires, and they have to be very, very careful not to have some rich entrepreneur or liberal go down and catch sight of the reptilian ships creating the fires. So this is a problem. There's a lot of collateral damage in the area of the Amazon, and these portals are opening, allowing rogue access by certain aliens, besides as well as reptoids. And of course, they are trying to close those portals. The military uses particle beam weapons. They used to use nukes. And the reptoid ships are quite prevalent, I guess, right now down in the Amazon. And the local government is going out of their way to try to hide all of this. More about portals. Mark said every portal is different. There's an issue on closing a portal, and that has to do with whether it's closed at one end, because closing the one end could cause an explosion out the other end, and that could go into an interdimensional space and or backfire into our space. And so this is quite convoluted and difficult. And so this is an issue. Some portals are connected to stargates, and they do open into other dimensions. Back in the 40s and 50s, we would just nuke the portals, and this is something that our military was doing in places like Nevada, where they said, we had nuclear tests going on. Those actually weren't really tests. We were fighting aliens back then. And the Raptors think that we are crazy to be doing this. Humans did not realize that that there are aliens that like having what Mark calls a frat party, where they are deciding it would be fun to go off and invade Earth and kill some humans. And so this is the kind of thing we're dealing with, or our military is dealing with. Unfortunately, in those days, we used nukes to close portals in Nevada and Southern California off the coast, and this raised the radiation level much higher than in those areas. Mark says that the best defense is still an offense. In his view, he thinks like a military man and doesn't see himself changing in that regard. We talked about who handles disclosure, and he insisted it would not be the Vatican, in part because they're run by the reptilians, the reptoids specifically, and that they are too easy to assassinate, and that they are very tightly controlled. He also said that China is totally controlled by the reptoids, and this includes the elders. Using China, the reptoids have been trying to take over the financial system for many years. And that includes Chinese communists, a race of Chinese that are not reptilian but are controlled by the reptilians. And the reptoids go also into India and Pakistan, thinking it would be a great theater of operations and world drama, but so far they've been wrong. Not much has happened in the India-Pakistan situation. The reptoids do control China and are trying to control world resources. War with China may be inevitable. The reptoid base in the Draco Mountains of South Africa, he has mentioned this in other interviews. He says they want to expand out from there. Again, the wagon train idea and what happened in Western U.S. terraforming the planet. There are 24 to 35 alien races interested in colonizing us and colonizing Earth, and that they aren't necessarily interested in eliminating us. They simply want to colonize us and make use of our skill sets and our abilities. They can't live a long time in our atmosphere. This is where, of course, genetic human hybrids come in, and creating of human hybrids. Many aliens need a more methane radiation-filled environment, and so this continues. Regarding especially terrifying-looking aliens, Mark said the strange thing about that is that many of them end up to be our friends, even though they look quite terrifying. Regarding refueling planes, most of the planes now are being refueled by drones, and those are in flight. And the drones are AI and thinking for themselves. There is a story about one drone that would not obey a direct order because it decided that it was the problem. And even when assured by the humans that it was not a problem, it would not believe the humans. It was ordered to refuel a spaceship coming in to the base from outer space, but the drone refused and ended up getting, and the drone dove itself into the Earth, destroying itself, and refused to obey the order. This has sent the military for something of a loop, and this is the kind of thing that they are dealing with now on a very sophisticated level involving AI. Aliens are often considered to be more organized than humans, but Mark says this is not necessarily the case. We tend to think that, but they are not necessarily as equipped as we think to deal with us. And they argue among themselves just like we argue among ourselves. I asked him if there was anything special he was supposed to tell me. He said that he wanted to emphasize that aliens, in most cases, are here to colonize us, not eliminate us, although I'm not sure that's comforting necessarily, and that they like what we're able to do. They like jewelry, beer, chocolate, and other talents that we have, and they would like to see us take our place among the Galactic Confederation. And my dog is in the background here. So a lot of aliens would want full disclosure, and they don't want to colonize us. They want to do business with us. The Secret Space program is not only about defending Earth, but also about commerce. And there is a list of things that they wish we did not have, such as time travel, anti-gravity ships, gate technology, and going interstellar. Of course, access to neutron star energy. And I guess there are other things. We have had gate technology since the Montauk Project and before. Regarding the alien human hybrid program, the gray human hybrids, this program has been very successful. Mark is very aware of it. And I did have some people want me to ask Mark about it. He has, of course, dealt with this program because he has been instrumental in invading Dulce and attempting to rescue humans, he and his father. This is one of the key stories about Captain Mark Richards. And this was, I guess, back when he was obviously involved in the Secret Space program, I believe in the 60s and after that. And ultimately, he said they went in and rescued humans, but they ended up being re-abducted. So he's very aware of the gray human hybrid program. I ran by him the idea that the program has been so successful in Central and South America that it is one of the reasons for the increased border control, because the Trump administration is concerned about the X-Men factor having to do with special powers that these children who are now growing up may have, and he agreed. He also said the TSA scanners have nothing to do with detecting metal, but they are all about detecting whether you are AI, augmented human, or alien, and so on. And he said the one thing that they can zone in on is bone structure, because bone structure doesn't lie. And regarding the X-Men and special powers and the alien human hybrid program, I want to recommend a movie, which is the X-Men movie called Logan, which is all about this subject and quite excellent in my opinion. Regarding Trump, he says Trump is always trying to tweet out messages with hidden meanings. He's not owned by any group. He's highly unpredictable. Mark admires how he's maintained himself under the attacks and doesn't let people push him around. He agrees that he's likely the reincarnation of General Patton. Patton was also a lot like Trump. Earth Defense Headquarters. Earth Defense Headquarters is Mark and Joanne Richards' organization, and you can go there. And I'll put the URL on the screen. It's edh.ca.gov, I believe. And this is an organization that they were hoping to put together to bring the challenge of anti-gravity forward, and so far they have not been successful in that effort. He talked about this thing called the Glomar Explorer, and this is a high-tech craft that was used to raise a sub from the ocean floor and several years ago, and ever since then it's been used for secret missions involving ETs and humans, and it is used as a meeting place for top secret meetings. Regarding the reptoids, he says there are 8 different reptoid species. He doesn't call them reptoid or reptilian human hybrids because in his day, regardless of the race, if it's a hybrid, it's the enemy. And they now recognize that humans are hybrids. So this further adds further complexity to this notion. But it is interesting to note how the language has changed over the years. He said there's a major war going on for the past year in the Orion sector. The Draco are heavily involved in this war, and it is there is an attempt to distract humans and raptors from this war by creating issues on Earth. There are already around 50,000 humans serving in the Orion front and fighting the war against the Draco. There are 2 sides in this war. One side involves Draco reptoids and trogs, as described in a prior interview as insectoids and greys, and the other side involves raptors, mantids, Pleiadians, and humans. I've asked if one of the distractive maneuvers by the Draco might have been the Vegas false flag attack that happened a year or so ago, and Mark said that he doesn't have good enough intel on the Vegas situation, but that it was possible. Regarding Brexit, he said there is a group holding it back. It is imperative that the British are able to come over to the American side. We can't fully trust them at this time, which is strange because they are our closest ally. Regarding the secret space program in Colorado Springs and NORAD, that is only a small part of the secret space program, and even the base under Washington, D.C. is not considered a major base. Regarding the future of humanity, he said that if we last another 80 years, we will become what he calls a Type 4 civilization. We are currently a Type 2, but from Mark's point of view, we are currently already a stellar civilization. And to see more about the types of civilizations, I have put a link on my notes on my website under this interview so that you can go there and see the explanation there. It's quite interesting. Special powers. I asked Mark if he has special powers, and I also talked a bit about my own, and he said yes, he does, but he was unwilling to talk further about what his special powers are. Regarding John F. Kennedy, Mark said he did know him quite well as a kid. Mark was quite young when Kennedy was in power, but nonetheless, he knew quite a bit about him. He said that prolific sexually back in those days, he and his father supported Kennedy in a big way. He said that people were having sex with whoever they wanted to. They were having too much sex, drinking too much, and having too many drugs. And that when Kennedy went to Dallas, he was very sure of himself, and he figured he could go on stage in Dallas and say whatever he wanted, and to expose the entire cover-up regarding aliens and the CIA, etc., and the banking issue as well. However, this obviously was not the case. Regarding the Raptors, Mark said it is especially difficult to command Raptors because they don't obey you easily, that they have decided even before you give an order what order you're going to give them and decided whether or not it's a good one. And so you can't begin to have a discussion with them about different points of view on the order because they've already figured out all the different points of view. Their minds work really, really fast, and they've already made their own decision. So he says it is therefore difficult to command them. However, Mark is known to be quite a good commander of the Raptors simply because of their loyalty and love for him and his history with them. Regarding plasma beings, strangely, Randy Kramer also brought forward in his talk at Yelm information about what he called the plasma beings. However, this parallels, I think, a race of beings that Mark Richards and Joanne have been talking about called the plasma beings as well. Also, the J-Tune, which are shapeshifters. And Mark Richards has talked about the ability of the J-Tune have to change into any shape or form. And this is something Joanne talks about on the circuit all the time. It's very interesting that we now have a super soldier Marine talking about the same kinds of aliens as Mark and Joanne. Although Mark said that he's not sure that they're actually made of plasma, at least the ones they're aware of. Regarding Mark's new job, and you can see more about this in interview 10, basically I had raised the idea that maybe he is being trained in his job because he's handling like large numbers of men. It's highly technical. They're building lenses for Medicare, as I understand it, and Mark is in charge of all of that. It looks like he's learning new computer programs and so on, and it appears that the military may actually be testing him to see if he is able to be recruited into the secret space program, whether he can handle the current state of play that our military is dealing with at his age. And Mark does agree that this is perfectly possible. And in fact, Mark is obviously more than able to handle this sort of thing. Mark's primary goal is to see humanity succeed. He talked about his objective matching a certain portion of the secret space program and their efforts as well. And he is, I think, possibly going to try to convince them that he can be trusted since they have similar goals in mind at this time. And that would be a great step forward. So I also was encouraging him along these lines. Disclaimer. As a journalist, I am not allowed to use a recording device of any kind, not audio or video, during the interviews. I am forced to rely on a tiny pencil to scribble notes on torn pieces of paper, and have to depend mainly on my memory to put down anything to do with this interview. That's why I call it Total Recall. This again is Total Recall 11, and I am totally capable of getting things wrong, but for the most part, I have found that my memory is quite accurate, and over the years, this has been something I have been now doing for a total of 5 years with Captain Mark Richards, and obviously for 15 years and counting in Project Camelot. So I have had a lot of success in testing my abilities in this area. Donations. Your donations are most welcome and needed at this time. I have had nothing but computer problems also during this broadcast, and with my computers in trying to get this sort of audio video together, and you will see it in the transcript, the information that I have been hit with some kind of pulse weapon or whatever it is that causes the film and audio to jump, mainly the picture, it appears. And that is something that's been going on for the last month or so since I went to interview Captain Mark Richards. So it may be a push to try to silence us, and me in particular. So any financial help you can give would be very welcome to help fund this new computer that I now have and have had to put on a credit card. I will deduct it eventually in April, but I had to lay out of pocket, and will be paying payments on it and interest payments as well, which raises the price of the computer. So any donations would be greatly appreciated at this time. With an audience of 232,000 subscribers and actually 63 million worldwide viewers, it seems that any small donation from any of these individuals would be quite welcome, and perhaps something that you could consider. And so thank you very much if you do so. And I will continue to fight the good fight to get this information out. And I have many more interviews to come. It is a lot more difficult at this time to get new information out there. So I hope that you do appreciate the efforts that we go to bring new information to you on a weekly basis, and our efforts in regard to traveling to various parts of the world where I can also gather intel on various situations on the ground. That's another important part of my work, and I have been doing this as travel to Egypt, where I take groups, and we're going again in April 2020. So if you want to sign up, it is on my website under Egypt at the top, under the events tab. And then I will also be considering going to Turkey, and I'm being invited to speak in Romania. So these things are possible. I do not get paid much when I do speak out there, and I also often have to pay my own way to and from places. So this is something to consider as well. And I want to say that I want to thank Mark Richards and Joanne Richards for fighting the good fight and for sticking with it all these years and for being so courageous. And I want to thank everyone out there who has supported this work and continues to do so. Thank you, and goodbye.